Okay, I'm August Miller. Nickname is Gus. When I was a kid, it was Bo. There are other names people call me, but we'll leave them out of this interview.
And why are you here?
I'm here hopefully to race in the Finn Gold Cup, because that's what I raced in 50 years ago. But also, this is an anniversary, coming back to a really important turning point in my life. And I've always liked Australians.
Thank you.
They're more laid back than my countrymen. Right now, I'm 90, approaching 91. But I don't think that way.
No worries. Well, we're here with Gus Miller, Finn sailing legend. And maybe if you can start off by telling us about your life of sailing and when you first began sailing.
Well, I came from a sailing family, spent time in Narragansett Bay, just north of Newport. When I was 3, my father taught me how to steer by pulling a little punt that had steering ropes in it up and down the beach, and then taking me sailing, but I'd be told to sit there and don't move and don't get in the way. So by osmosis, I learned things. Then I got a little punt with lee boards, and I was given the freedom to go anywhere. The rule was, take care of the boat first, take care of yourself, don't get drowned, and be home for supper. So I had great freedom just to go explore. And I thought, it took me 10 years to really learn a lot about the sea and a boat, that I could teach it to somebody else now in about 4 days. So it was being self-taught. Occasionally I would get instructions. One time I came home, my grandmother was at the door, and she said, Mrs. Kinder called, and she said, you were sailing dangerously. I was hiking out over the side of a little catboat, which is normal now, but back then it was forbidden. So the culture I grew up in was really a maritime culture, and the rules got passed down that way. They weren't legislated, it's just there were things you did and things you didn't do.
And you were part of a sailing club?
Yes, there was during World War II, and the yacht club the family belonged to had a Harrisoft 12.5, which had a 250-pound keel on it. I spent a lot of time sailing that by myself. When I was 14, I got a job in a boatyard. And when I got off in the afternoon at 3:30, friends had a 12.5, and I'd go sailing for a couple hours before supper. And a 12.5 keelboat was beautifully balanced, and I learned a great deal from it. Then crewed for other people, got involved in ocean racing. Narragansett Bay, there were all kinds of different boats that I wound up sailing, so I must have sailed at least 3 dozen different kinds of boats as a teenager. Went in the Marine Corps, came out of that, went to the University of Michigan, and they had a sailing club there that raced a downsized International 14, an International 14 hull with a snipe rig in it. And I'd never really sailed on inland lakes, so it was confusing to see the wind shifts they had, but I learned a great deal from that lake. I got even more involved in ocean racing, and wound up being taken into the Storm Trysail Club and the RORC. I raced in the Admiral's Cup, the Onion Patch, Mackinac races, whatnot. I'd been a wrestler in high school. I was on a Marine Corps wrestling team, wrestled at Michigan. And when I got injured in that and stopped it, then 2 years later I bought a Finn, because I'd always heard about it.
Right.
And it was an old Polish boat, eventually came apart. But I got involved in a few regattas a year. In '67, I went to the pre-Olympics in Acapulco as an adventure. Got to meet Paul Elstrom and Wash Hill. He handled themselves. One of the races I got out in front because I was lucky in a wind shift. But that was a kind of goad to go further with it. But I didn't do much until '73. And I was debating going in every major ocean race in the world or doing a fin campaign. And a Romanian engineer friend of mine said, do the fin, the challenge is bigger. So I went after the fin. I went to the pre-Olympic regatta in Kingston, and I met David Howlett, the English sailor. So he and I really took to each other and began to sail a lot. And then the next year, John Bertrand came to Pewaukee to learn how to be a sailmaker, and he became a training partner. So from those two, they taught me how to live in a world I never even knew existed, of how to get to the top of a big fleet and how to stay there. So they were invaluable. I would not be here now without John Bertrand, Australian John Bertrand, the real John Bertrand.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the American John.
No, we call him Plastic John.
Okay.
There's real John, who's took the America's Cup away from the New York Yacht Club. And by the way, I was in my fin out watching that race.
Okay.
And the Coast Guard came by and said, do you realize you're 11 miles offshore? And I said, by my reckoning, I'm 11 1/4 miles offshore.
Yeah.
So John and David Howlett were absolutely instrumental in my being here.
Can I ask, do you think that you learnt more about sailing in the fin or in the many, many different vessels or yachts?
In the many
cruising?
different kinds of boats and the many different people that I met.
Yeah.
The fin is the boat that I've learned the most from, because I think there's more to be learned from it because of its heritage than any of those other, particularly the modern boats.
Yeah.
It's also, there's an immense history of evolution behind the fin, with thousands of people contributing to what it is now. And that heritage is an important thing. Whereas most modern boats have a small design group or one guy. The fin represents thousands of people.
Yeah.
And even before the Helsinki Olympics, when it was used as a recreational boat and a cargo boat on Swedish lakes, even during World War II, they didn't have cloth for sails in Sweden, so they made paper sails that were waterproofed with wax.
Okay.
So that Swedish heritage behind the boat, and so many Swedes experimenting with hull-shaped things like that.
Yeah, well, it wasn't long after the Second World War when it was first designed, was it? I think it was late 40s.
Really 1948, 49.
Yeah.
It went in a design contest. It was not in that, but they built them, and they brought all the candidates together. And the designer of each boat raced all the other boats, and the fin won every race.
Yeah, okay.
Paul Elstrom made his fame racing in that, and years later in '76, he took my fin out for a sail, 78, and he said this boat is half as hard as they were when I was sailing them. So there's been this continuing evolution that's important about it. It's really a boat by sailors for sailors.
Mm.
It's a kind of archaic in that way, but that rich history is a very strong part of its sailing qualities.
Yeah, yeah. And Olympics, you were selected?
No, as a wrestler, I'd made the final trials for the Olympic wrestling team. Unfortunately, the defending gold medalist was in my class, and I didn't last long with him. And I got interested in the fin because it was a Olympic boat. My goal was to go in '76, but I was in an auto crash, and on our trials, in the beginning I was taking some drugs that were really confusing my mind. So I wound up coming in second and went to the Olympics as a training partner. While I was there, they asked me to coach a Filipino who had never been in a fin before. So I had to rig the boat,
Wow.
teach him how to sail it. And after that, the U.S. asked me to do a clinic for these new laser kids like American John Bertrand. And then the Canadians asked me to give a clinic up there in conjunction with Paul Elstrom. So he and I met up again. And as I began to get asked to do more and more clinics, the International Federation decided, why don't we do a program around the world where you travel and give clinics all over the place. So that led to my holding training camps for the Finn before an Olympics. So I wound up going to eight Olympiads. The 80 games I didn't get to, but all of the others. And the object was to build up the depth of the Finn clear around the world and take the culture of the class, which is unique, out to other parts of the world. And those that came to the clinics would then take it back to the sailing community and where they were at home.
Well, that's they continued to try and expand the Finn right to the end of the Olympics. I believe they had the emerging countries programs fairly recently.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was an extension of what you started.
That was an extension of what I had done. With not quite so many coming in, they were more selective in who they chose for. But again, trying to build up the base.
Yeah, fantastic. So you've been instrumental in developing the Finn to where it is today.
Very much so, but it's with the help of an awful lot of other people. I thought someone like Kiwi Ralph Roberts was instrumental in that.
Yeah.
Really good sailors, and Paul Elstrom was a part of that. So it was a joint effort with an awful lot of good sailors.
It must be you must feel good about the fact that Finn is stronger now than almost any time before. It's despite not being in the Olympics, there's been a resurgence almost and a surge forward with numbers and boat building and based around, I suppose, the competitions that you're here to be a part of.
Yes, sailing has undergone a great transformation. It's become much more expensive, much more commercial, much more driven by media. And the Finn class is kind of resisted a lot of that and stayed true to its roots, that it's a boat run by sailors for sailors, and it evolves as that. And that camaraderie, the challenge of beating each other up on the water and then coming in and being quite open with each other about what were you doing, what you weren't doing, and just the joy of sailing the thing and the joy of being pushed that hard. Those qualities are lost in a lot of the rest of sailing. And the Finn is really true to type, where others there's an awful lot of hype involved. It's not real.
Yeah, and I've experienced that personally with a lot of feedback from other sailors, very high level sailors, always prepared to share ideas.
No, that's the joy of the culture. It may be a little archaic, but it's a true value that the class is hung on to, and I think that's part of the reason that it's continuing to grow. To see a Masters fleet with 400 boats, that's incredible.
Yes, yeah, and there's no sign of that easing. If anything, it's growing in strength.
I think you're right, it is growing, and that's wonderful to see.
Yeah. Favourite race of all time in Finns? Maybe your favourite
magic moment
in a Finn.
Favourite moment in your
best
career?
result.
Well, there was one adventure that could have been a big misadventure. I was doing a clinic in Miami, and I had guys in the air flying in from India and Japan and whatnot. And I was leaving Rhode Island to drive 1,500 miles down to Miami when I got word that the freighter with a container with the boats that I needed for the clinic had been diverted from Florida to Norfolk. And oh my God, I've got these guys flying in and no boats. What am I going to do? So one thing after another, got the shipping company to agree to have their ship unloaded. Got the harbor master in Norfolk to agree to do that. Got the longshoreman agree to unpack the boat, get the container out from a stack. and then got the Teamsters to drive it overnight, violating, I'm sure, some speed rules, so that in the morning, when everyone arrived, there was a container of fins. There are lots of close calls like that.
We had one similar 2 days ago here, where it was supposed to be here a month ago, the container, and the boats had collapsed inside. So yeah, there's always stories with travel, I think, yeah. Can be difficult.
Oh, actually, it's been
Yeah.
one great big series of stories like that.
Yeah. And your favourite race that you can remember?
Well, I can think of racing off Malmo in a Finn Gold Cup, and it was relatively shallow water to the west of Malmo. And the Swedish race committee decided to send us out in 40 knots. And I remember those steep waves coming out. John Birch and I were rooming together. We were terrified by that. That same regatta, at the opening ceremony, there were 2 Israelis attending the regatta. They fired a cannon to announce the opening ceremony, and in half a second, the 2 Israelis were flat on the ground. Response to that explosion. They're just innumerable things like that occur.
We might cut that bit out for this. Considering current situation.
Current political situation. Yeah, well, it'd be good.
I say the Finn class is pretty apolitical.
Yeah.
That's one of the nice things about it, that the depth of conversation with many very different points of view are a normal part of it.
Yeah, they actively overseas try and keep conversations to Finn sailing and sailing in general. When I've travelled over there, yeah, they don't get very political. Actually, and also what you told me earlier about the reason that you specifically wanted to be here, because it's 50 years since you were here last time. Yeah.
There all of these different Olympics and other Finn Gold Cups I've gone to. Every Finn sailor wants to cheat, find a way that he can get an edge without getting caught. So it's very important for the technical committee, and particularly the measurers and the chief measurer, to keep a lid on it. And for a while, Yuri Saraskin, the Estonian, was the chief measurer. He was KGB, and he walked around with a briefcase that terrorized the fleet to keep them honest.
Wow. And when were you last in Brisbane for the Gold Cup, was it?
I paid a visit up here at a good mate from Ann Arbor who taught exercise physiology at the university here. I came up to visit him, but my first trip here was 50 years ago to race in the Finn Gold Cup, and that was against my 2 training partners, John Bertrand and David Howlett. Well, I wound up 20th, but I realized I was not strong enough to compete with those guys. So I went back to Ann Arbor and got permission to use the University of Michigan's football training room for 2 months. They had just gotten a complete set of the brand new Nautilus equipment. Well, those 2 months really made a difference physically. So when I went to the Europeans in Graudois in France, I came in 3rd, but I beat everyone who'd beaten me here, including my training partner, John. So back then, Royal Queensland was very different from now, but walking around the measurement area today, watching what they're doing a first-class job of controlling these guys who they want to find an edge. They're being very exact. It was good to see that. The transformation of the club to me is amazing. But the club's always had an esprit to it that's been marvelous to be a part of. So it's really wonderful to be back here. Historically, this was a turning point for me to have been here then. that all that followed afterwards started here. It was a realization I wasn't strong enough.
Yes.
So it was very important for me to come back for this 50th anniversary, one way or another. My age was a factor, and I thought, I'm going to do it. You better account for the infirmities of getting older. So I designed a program in a gym over 7 months. It was very demanding, and my physician says I have the body of a 60-year-old now. So
Yeah, getting
she's a rower herself, so she knows what she's looking at.
Yeah, yep. So you've spent 7 months getting ready for this
7
event.
months.
Yes.
That was well over 100 workouts. Some of them going to 3.5 hours to really improve balance, to build strength, but most importantly to build endurance. So I used high intensity interval training. And that 80% was just above or just below the anaerobic threshold. And it was something the East Germans developed. And it was a very good technique for dealing with cardiac patients and cancer patients. So that built a base, but 20% is very high heart rate. So I would go up to maximum heart rate. So my anaerobic threshold is what the physicians say should be my max heart rate. And my max heart rate is way above that. That's all from the training. My heart rate right now, my rest heart rate's around 40. My anaerobic threshold's about 130.
And max heart rate?
Max heart about 155. I could push it harder, but my cardiologist has fits if I even think that.
I think you're probably fitter than a lot of the sailors here. In fact, I know
Well,
you
we'll find out, but it was an issue. And the exercise regimen that I started, that really has its roots here,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of other benefits that if I'm in a bad mood or I'm feeling I can't possibly do anything today, I'll do an exercise routine, the bad mood goes away, and I feel revitalized.
Endorphins, perhaps, yeah.
Just in terms of being sickness-free and ailment-free. It's made a big difference that way. The science shows it's one of the best medicines there is. And when you consider how humans evolved coming out of our common ancestor with chimpanzees, if we live a chimpanzee's lifestyle, we get all kinds of heart disease and things. But back then we developed a huge anaerobic capacity because we can run a horse to death. So our evolutionary background is humans have to exercise. And if you don't, you're going to try and live like a chimpanzee, you're going to get really sick.
Use it or lose it.
That's exactly right.